So genes aren't exactly the same from person to person. Even a gene like the hemoglobin gene shown here can vary a bit between people. And these slightly different versions of the same genes are called alleles. Different gene alleles produce slightly different protein shapes and in turn different phenotypes. For example, one allele of the hemoglobin molecule, which we described before, leads to a change in the shape of red blood cells, known as sickle cells. In this photo, you can see a normal red blood cell here on your left and a sickled cell here on your right. These different alleles of the same gene can sometimes be useful in different situations. So, for example, some sickled cells are helpful in tropical regions because they tend to help protect against malaria. However, having only sickled cells can be really dangerous because they don't carry oxygen as effectively as normal red blood cells. They also tend to get stuck in blood vessels. So how can someone have some sickled cells but not all? Well, normally an individual has not one but two versions of each gene. One version is from the mother and the other from the father. When the two alleles for the same gene are the same, we call that individual homozygous for that particular gene. And when they're different, that individual is called heterozygous for that particular gene. Sometimes one allele will be dominant over the other. For example, the allele for proteins that lead to curly hair is dominant over the allele that leads to straight hair. So even if this child's father has perfectly straight hair, hers will be curly. It's another example of the distinction between genotype and phenotype. Although the girl's although her phenotype is curly, her genotype could include an allele for straight hair, and in fact her own children could have straight hair as a result. The genotype of each child is created by something like a lottery. So during sexual reproduction, the father and the mother, of course, each contribute a copy of one chromosome from each pair to a child. Which chromosome from each pair is chosen is really determined at random and can be different for each child. So the genotype of each child is created by something like a lottery, with alleles from two parents being remixed across all of the 23 chromosome pairs. This shuffling of alleles with every new offspring, combined with kind of a chance of mutation in the gene copying process, leads to a lot of genetic variation among individuals in a population, and even among individuals in the same family, which is why you're probably quite different than your brother, your sister, your mom, and your dad, and so forth. Even though we look for similarities between us, and there certainly are some, there's plenty of room for variation, and in fact that usually occurs. In biology, examples of genetic influence usually involve physical characteristics like hair type, which we were just discussing, eye color, blood cells, etc. Psychologists take this a little bit further and apply that set of genetic principles to understanding human behavior, and we call this field behavioral genetics.